So when I was a teenager and started to explore the idea of taking horse lessons and trying to negotiate with her on how I could get to the barn and how I could pay for the lessons and why it was important to me, that was when she kind of expressed her fear of the animals. She doesn't like how large they are. She doesn't trust them, just the complete opposite of me.
Hi, you're listening to On Your Terms with me, Hayley Ryan. This is the show where two people get honest about the messy reality of choosing yourself. No scripts, no performance, just real conversation about self-abandonment, boundaries, and what it actually looks like to live on your own terms. So let's get into it.
Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of On Your Terms. I'm joined by Ali, who is a specialist in backcountry horse travel, and she has more than a decade of experience wrangling, packing, and guiding across some of the West's most rugged landscapes. That sounds like an amazing job.
It's pretty good. Yeah, I really enjoy it.
Anyway, welcome to the podcast. I'm really happy to have you here. How are you doing?
Thanks, Hayley. I'm glad to be here. I'm good. I'm actually looking out a window. I'm amazed at our weather. We're up in the mountains in Northern California. And so yesterday it was about 70 degrees Fahrenheit, and today it's snowing. So
wow.
We're in the wild weather swings of spring, where we never know what we're going to get. And so it's just really beautiful outside, and I'm happy to be inside, and it's a great day to be here speaking with you.
Perfect. So let's get into why you're here. So basically your sort of story is that you've been chasing your dreams despite having autoimmune issues, and you've recently gone all in on your own pack outfit. So do you want to sort of rewind a little bit and tell me how things were before you decided to go all in on yourself? And so what sort of things were you struggling with? What was life like back then?
Yeah. Gosh, it goes way back. It goes way back into childhood. I was raised by a single mother. We lived in the suburbs. And so some of my friends had ranches and farms, and some of my friends lived in the city. And we were kind of in that middle ground where it was cookie cutter and basic and lots of similarities without a lot of identity. And I just dreamed of spending more time with my friends who had farms. I have always been a horse girl. I've always loved the animals. I think that they're majestic and regal and beautiful and strong and kind of all of the things that I want to be as a human being. But having a single mother who was struggling with paying bills and transportation and just working really hard to make sure I had all of the good, solid things that a child needs during their upbringing, I didn't get to spend a lot of time with my horses. So I lived a lot in this kind of fantasy world, dreaming of what it would be like to have a horse, to be a horse, to ride horses. And it wasn't until after college that I got into it. So I'm kind of late to the horse world, but spent most of my adult years working with wranglers and outfitters and pack stations and horse trainers and learning all I can. And like you said, yeah, I've kind of gone all in, and now am the proud owner of my own pack station out here in the Sierra Nevada. But it all began with a dream as a child. And it was a hard dream to realize, kind of, again, getting back to my mother. She is a wonderful woman and did all that she could to make sure that I had a really safe upbringing and a good education and didn't need or want for anything. But except for the horses, And so, gosh, I lost my train of thought there. But yeah, it was, definitely kind of challenging to be the kid that wanted the thing and also wanted to help my mother out and please her, and just felt disconnected between who I really was and who she wanted me to be. So when I was a teenager and started to explore the idea of taking horse lessons and trying to negotiate with her on how I could get to the barn and how I could pay for the lessons and why it was important to me, that was when she kind of expressed her fear of the animals. She doesn't like how large they are. She doesn't trust them, just the complete opposite of me. And I think that was where the rift sort of began. And knowing that she sacrificed a lot of her own wants and needs to provide for me. I didn't really want to ruffle a lot of feathers. I wasn't trying to create conflict, although I think that some definitely arose. Just from the fact that I was really persistent, and so was she. That's something that we have in common. A shared trait is our persistence and diligence and tenacity. And so, if you can imagine two opposing entities coming together in disagreement over this one thing that was so meaningful to me, we struck a chord there, and that kind of lasted through the rest of my teenage years. Unfortunately, that was probably our biggest division. And so, that made it more difficult for me to come to her for, reasoning and suggestions. And so, as I was developing as a teenager and becoming a young adult and had the wide world ahead of me, I kind of strayed from her and her authority. And so that was where things started to change, I guess, for myself. I was realizing my own authenticity and my own desires and trying to chase them. But at the same time, she was my family, and I didn't want to completely abandon her to chase my own dreams. And so struggled a lot myself with kind of compromise. And I think that was where my autoimmune started to display symptoms. So my young adult years were definitely spent discovering autoimmune, trying to pinpoint a diagnosis, trying to come up with a treatment, and still try to come into my own as a young adult.
Yeah, and getting treatment and diagnosis isn't easy, is it? Because it's like it can take years sometimes, can't it?
Yeah, it's very time consuming. It's very expensive. Without a good support network, it can be consuming for sure.
So did you, obviously with the rift with your mum and her fear, did you kind of like absorb that fear, or were you kind of just trying to be conflict avoidant and suppressing what you wanted to keep her happy?
A little bit of both. I definitely, it felt more like a betrayal to myself trying to please my mother. So I wouldn't say it was fear. It just didn't, it felt kind of icky. And I think that that's like a scientific term right there, icky.
Oh, definitely.
But yeah, it felt like when I had those conversations with my mom, I had to keep a little bit hidden from her. When I wanted to do the things that were important to me, I didn't necessarily trust myself to go in 100%. So I was always holding back. I always kind of planned on a safety net. And that was more of something that my mother kind of imposed on me. It wasn't necessarily my own safety net. And so while I wanted to take the risks and I felt like that if I did, I could be successful, I also felt like I was abandoning myself a little bit and not fully committing, and therefore not getting the desirable outcomes that I wanted or knew I was capable of.
Yeah. And how did that affect your health? Because obviously being in those kind of situations weighs a lot. And obviously from what you've said, it's kind of like you had two separate versions of yourself, and one you were kind of tucking off to the side and trying to forget about in order to sort of keep things normal, I suppose. And so how did you find your health during that time?
Well, I think the body kind of keeps score. I think that my physiology was reacting to my psychology. And so knowing that I was not fully committed and not living authentically, my body, and betraying my own desires, I think my body kind of started to betray itself. It comes down to a lot of trust. And I think that because I wasn't necessarily trusting myself, my body was responding in a way too, where it doesn't necessarily trust in what's healthy and what's normal. And so when I was on the right path, when I was doing the things that I wanted, when I was, taking the classes and the lessons and going to work with the trainers, my body would relax and the disease would kind of quiet and take a back seat. And then if I abandoned that and, needed to make more money or needed to go back home, then I would notice I had the flares. And so again, I don't know if science can prove this, and it sounds really woo-woo and kind of hocus pocusy. But if I look at the timeline of the decisions I was making and where I was at and my medical needs, there's correlation there.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? I love that statement though, that the body keeps the score. That's one of my favorite sayings, because it's so true. And we put our bodies through so much, abandoning ourselves for, like, out of guilt or shame, even sometimes. It's definitely something a lot of, I want to say women, but it's women and men, I think, both struggle with it. So obviously there's a big jump between you trying to sort of separate your wants to keep her, like your mum, happy. So tell me about what happened when you realized that you needed to sort of follow your own path. What was that like?
Yeah, that it was really isolating, I think is the word I would choose. I definitely had to step away from my relationship with my mother in order to focus on my relationship with myself. And so there were a number of years where we didn't speak. And I think that a lot of it came from I didn't want to sit with the feelings of me disappointing her. And that created a lot of conflict, her being disappointed. And she didn't see a future in horses for me or for anyone. You know, we didn't grow up in that environment. And so she just knew the typical stereotypes of owning horses. They're expensive. They're always getting injured. It's quite possible for me to get injured. And so she lived holding on to those thoughts instead of listening to all the other stories of successful horsemen and women out there. And so in order for me to really focus on myself and my learning and my development, and to make up some of that time that I felt like I had lost by not pursuing this endeavor, we cut ties, and that was really difficult, and that was really challenging. And I think that your podcast kind of talks a little bit about abandonment. And so in the beginning, I was abandoning myself, and then it came to the point where I felt like I was abandoning her. And so that's really hard. It's really challenging. It's really emotional still. But, after I took time to kind of develop my own sense of self and my own persona and discover that this is actually what I want to be doing, and I'm good at it, and I'm talented, and there's a passion for it, and I'm successful at it, that was when we came back around and were able to kind of reconnect and redevelop and redefine our relationship.
Yeah. And I think that is the main thing, isn't it? Because a lot of the time we abandon ourselves to keep other people happy. And then when we do finally choose ourselves, it's always at a cost. There's always something that we end up losing, whether that's relationships, whether that's a part of ourselves. There's always some kind of cost, whether it's big or small. And I think particularly with relationships, when the person can actually see you and how coming into your own and living for yourself is affecting you and how happy it's making you, and they're almost able to see the two sides of who you are, it makes it easier for them to kind of understand why you've done the things that you've done a lot of the time. Did you find that with your mom, and like when you were trying to rebuild the bridges, was she a bit more like understanding of you can do this and be successful, and you don't have to get hurt and things like that?
I think so. I don't know if she's actually directly come out and said it, but I think the fact that we can have the conversations, if I call her and we're on the phone, I can share like some of the trips or trails that I've been on, and she'll engage with it. And so I take that as a positive. I think that, she's kind of opened up to her friends and her circle about some of the things that I'm doing. Whereas I think when I was younger and just getting started in the industry, the conversations were, oh, how's Allie? Oh, I don't even know where she's at or what she's doing. She's running off with the horses. And now there's a little bit more commitment to it. I think that she shared with her friends that I am the new owner of my own pack station. I think that that's kind of a big deal for her. But again, that's things that are meaningful and and help her define success, right? Me being a business owner, now there is a level of success that aligns with her definition of success. Whereas when I'm out riding horses in the middle of nowhere, that's success to me. I'm out on the trail, I'm involved with nature, I'm noticing the sounds of the birds. I have the horse underneath me and we're going on this adventure together, and there's a lot of trust and a lot of partnership involved with that, and that success to me is that I get to do that. Whereas now there's a little bit of a monetary involvement, and I think that that is success to her. So it's like train tracks, we're moving in a similar direction but not necessarily the same path. And I think that that's where a lot of relationships are and exist. And so if we can just find those intersections and land on those, or see that the direction of travel is similar, I think that that's really great, and where we can really thrive in relationships with other people.
Definitely. So obviously we've covered the events that led up to you sort of getting involved with horses. What was it like? Talk me through sort of getting involved with horses up until the point of you kind of realizing that you had to go it alone and wanted to set up your own pack.
I think that story is pretty standard for a lot of people. Livestock is all consuming. It's time consuming. They come first. They are fed before I'm fed. They require so much service and care throughout the day and throughout the week. And so it's a lifestyle, and the hours are long. And so when you're working for other people, putting in those long hours, there comes a point where if I'm going to be doing so much work, why am I not doing it for myself? I think was kind of the attitude that I had reached. And in particular, last season was a really challenging one for me. I split my seasons between two different industries. In the winter, I work at a ski resort, and in the summer, I work with horses. And I found a corporation that has both ski resorts and horse corrals. And so I was really lucky to kind of be a year-round employee and receive all the benefits and health insurance and all of that. And having autoimmune, that's really important to make sure that you've got health insurance. And so I felt really blessed and fortunate to be able to work for a company and be able to do both. And so that was really unique, in that in the beginning was really important for me. But after 10 years of going back and forth between summer and winter and relocating between states and loading up all of my horses and bringing the herd with me, and then getting to these corrals where I rely on my supervisor to have some things done before I arrive, so communicating that the corral fencing will need to be repaired before I arrive with the horses. And not having that done. And then horses are escaping. And now, in addition to giving guest rides, I have to spend time going and looking for horses out in the wilderness. And so last year was kind of, I think, the final breaking point, the last straw, where I thought, you know what, if I'm going to be doing all of these things and having to pick up all of the pieces of mismanagement, I'd rather it fall on my shoulders. And so that was kind of how I took the leap into going into my own pack station. I thought, this is something that I really love to do, and also I can do it better than how it's being run right now. And so that was how that came about. And it feels really natural. It feels like coming home. There's obviously, I wake up sometimes at 3 a.m. and I'm like, oh my God, what have I done? I took my savings and went all in, and now I'm really committed. And this, with gas prices going up and hay costs rising, and right now it's snowing, and we had 70 degrees all winter without any snow. Like, did I make the right decision? There's so many variables I can't control. But I think that's everything. And I think that's all the time. And there's never a great time to fully commit. You just have to say I'm all in and then stick with it. And so, I feel like I'm doing the right thing, and I'm reassuring myself, and I have a huge support network behind me that's reassuring me as well. And so I know that it's the right decision. But yeah, it just kind of came from getting tired of doing it for other people.
Yeah. It's funny because as you're talking, I'm I'm romanticizing it in my head. I've watched too much Yellowstone and things like that. But it's like I'm sat here thinking like, oh my god, this woman's life must be amazing. She spends like the summer on the horses, the winter skiing and things like. But like you say, it's really really hard work, isn't it? It's going to be exhausting. So how did you find that with your autoimmune symptoms? Was that tricky? Did you get pushback from like supervisors, employers, anything like that?
I got pushback from my medical providers. My doctors did not want me to leave the state. And so, when I first got into the industry, my winters were in California and my summers were in Wyoming. And my California physicians and specialists, they did not want to pass off care. And thankfully, I found great doctors in Wyoming and Idaho, and so I was able to maintain care and consistent care. And it took a couple years, though, for everybody to kind of communicate together and remain aligned and share all of the information. And I know that that's part of the profession, but autoimmune lupus can rear its ugly head at any time. And I think the amazing thing about making these decisions and coming into these choices and committing to them is that when I say I am leaving and I am going to another state and I am taking my horses with me and I will be working outside and it will be very physical, my disease, my illness actually calms down. It tends to flare less. And I've learned over the course of progression that I had to make some changes. My lifestyle is now majority of caring for horses and riding horses. And then I sleep a lot. My diet has changed. And so I've definitely made some lifestyle changes to aid in my health and good health and maintaining my health. But I think that kind of following my heart and committing and doing the things that were always important to me and that kind of called to me and answered my dreams as a small child, that's where my body relaxes and doesn't necessarily have to put up these defense mechanisms. And so the illness and the disease also relaxes and subsides.
Yeah. And I'm guessing at no point when you were getting the pushback from the medical professions, you were like, oh, am I making the right decision? Am I doing the right thing? Should I just go do something else?
Yeah. Well, I never had that thought. It was always, if you don't feel comfortable with aiding me in going to another state and maintaining a level of healthcare, then I need to find a new doctor. Yeah. That was kind of my attitude. And my doctors are great. I'm not trying to throw them under the bus. I think that their concern is helping me maintain my health. And if I say, hey, adios, then they're not able to necessarily do that. So it took a couple of years before they felt confident and before we were able to find a medical system, a healthcare system, a series of providers that were on board with me. Yeah. And that's important too. I would recommend anybody with any kind of health concern to advocate for themselves and ask the questions and be willing to change providers if necessary.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you committed to yourself so much that nobody was going to change your mind and push you into something that you didn't want to be doing because you knew this was your path.
Yeah, I mean, I spent all of my formative years denying myself that and got to and landed in places that I didn't want to be and never felt great, always felt good, but never felt great or amazing. And life's too short to not feel great and amazing about what you're doing. So,
yeah. So let's talk about setting up your outfit then. So talk me through like the practical steps of doing that. Because like you say, you've put your savings into it and everything like that. So talk me through sort of what you actually done and sort of what it's cost you to do that. Obviously not in monetary terms. That's not, we're not a financial podcast. In like terms of like relationships, parts of yourself, anything like that. Has anything kind of changed for the better and you've had to leave a part of you behind as a result, kind of thing?
Yeah, I think right now I like you said, I've committed fully. I just recently purchased a pack station. It is quite expensive. There's livestock involved, there's tack, there's corrals, there's hay, there's trucks, there's trailers, there's fuel costs, there's land. All of those things that go into maintaining a herd of horses. And that can be expensive. And so doing it all at once, there is a financial cost, like you said. But packing up and relocating every 6 months, there's a cost to that as well. And I've had some romantic partnerships and I've had some really amazing friendships, and thankfully I've been able to maintain my really amazing friendships. I've got the most amazing set of girlfriends, and I've got some really great guy friends, and they are rooting for me. And that's a wonderful feeling. And I can't wait to, bring them out and take them on the trail. And that's one of my favorite things to do is ride horses with friends. And so to be able to do that with them now, instead of being a couple states away and just kind of sharing stories with them, I'm really excited to actually share the experience with them. But my romantic relationships never really last. Long distance relationships are really challenging. Working 12, 14, 16-hour days, 7 days a week to care for livestock and to invest in your guests and to be out on the trail and away from home. That comes at a cost. And there's not a lot of people that want to be, I guess, like number 2, number 3, number 4 on your list of priorities. That takes this really special person. And in the fall, when I'm out at hunting camp, I'm out in the backcountry for weeks and months at a time. And so I'm not even at home. And there's not a lot of people that feel comfortable with that scenario. And so there is a little bit of a loneliness aspect to it. But I think between spending so many hours with the horses and with the guests and then coming home just physically exhausted and going to bed, there's not often that I think about that or I realize that. And I think feeling 100% authentic to myself, and being genuine to myself, and knowing that this thing that I'm doing is exactly where I'm supposed to be and what I should be doing, there's very little loneliness. I think, if anything, there's a big cost to like executive decision making. There's a lot of fatigue that comes along with that, and being the person who is always the one making the decisions and always the one taking the action, and not really having another person to throw an idea at to see what their opinions and thoughts are. And so going at it solo, being a sole proprietor, I think that's where the cost is, more than anything, is just the fatigue and the loneliness comes from having to constantly make big decisions all of the time.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. And does it ever worry you with your health? Like if your health declines or anything like it, how do you deal with that sort of fear and uncertainty that lives in the back of your mind sometimes?
Yeah, it does live there. It does take up space. And I have to kind of push it aside and know that if something does happen, I have a place I can send my horses. I know that I have a good medical team behind me. I know that I've got some financial savings so that the cost won't become a burden for me. I know that I have friends that and former employees that are willing to step in and continue the business temporarily. So there are safety nets in place, but that's not something that I can focus my time and energy on. I don't want to put that idea out there and make it an opportunity. If it happens, it happens, and I'll deal with it. And that took years of kind of coming to that point. When you're first diagnosed with autoimmune, there's so many questions, and it's so difficult to receive a diagnosis. And you're just constantly getting tests and doing labs and taking medication and seeing if it works. And Western health care definitely focuses on symptoms, not necessarily the underlying concern. And so it's just a lot of treating symptoms and managing and maintaining and testing and monitoring. And I'm feel fortunate that I reached a place where we've been dealing with it long enough that there is kind of a baseline. It's a new baseline. when people ask me how I am, I say I'm great, but honestly, I'm exhausted all the time. Autoimmune is exhausting. But I can't live in that place of chronic fatigue and chronic pain because that would just be miserable. And so I had to change my baseline to just kind of push that to the side. And that's the new normal, is for me to always be tired. It's for me to always have a little bit of underlying pain. It's for me to have to be, prioritize rest. I would love in the summertime to be able to go camping with my friends and, to see some concerts and things like that. But a lot of times I have to decline and say no, because in order for me to do something that I'm passionate about that takes so much physical exertion, I need to prioritize rest. And so thankfully, I've had enough time with the illness to have some safety nets and to be able to have some expectations and to be able to have the awareness of when things are shifting and changing. And, that allows me to put some guidelines and safety nets in place.
Yeah. So I'm guessing it's been a bit of a learning curve then, figuring out sort of what your limitations are and think like where to sort of draw the line, like you say, with like going to concerts and things and spending time with friends. I'm guessing there's been times where you've gone out and done stuff that you maybe regretted afterwards because it just made that exhaustion even worse and hard to catch up then to get back into what you love.
100%. I think learning to say no and setting some boundaries, that was the hardest part of it. I want to do all of the things. When I feel great, I want to be outside and I want to be with my friends and I want to have a cocktail or two and I want to paddle the canoe across the lake and go camping and hiking and rock climbing and all of those things. But I can't. My body doesn't allow me to do all of the things. And saying no to my friends in the beginning was heartbreaking. It was so difficult. And that led to a lot of isolation. It was easier to isolate than to tell my friends no and feel like I was disappointing them. But you say it often enough and you see the benefits of it, that it becomes easier. And the friends that stuck by me through it are the ones that I want in my life, and they are in my life now, and they're going to support me whether I'm feeling great or whether I'm not feeling great. And those are the people that we should be surrounding ourselves with.
Definitely.
So I guess, saying no and feeling really bad about it also kind of weeded out the people that don't necessarily need to be in my life. And so, yeah, but that was definitely the hardest learning curve, was saying no.
Yeah. And I would imagine, like you say, the friends that didn't stick around, that I would imagine there was a lot of pressure from them to, like, because they wouldn't have understood obviously what you were dealing with, and specifically like how exhausting autoimmune diseases are, and then the fact that you've got such an intensive, exhausting job in the first place to compound that. I would imagine like a lot of people wouldn't really understand why you couldn't just go out and do something, because it's not like they were asking you to run a marathon or something like that.
Yeah. And it's not necessarily their burden to carry. So while I'm going and receiving the treatment and making these discoveries about myself and really learning a lot about my body and what it can and can't do and why it can and can't do that, and there's a lot of gray area that I don't understand still, it's not for me to put that on them and try to explain it to them and then pass the burden along to them. And I think that's where the isolation came from. But yeah, it's definitely, autoimmune is a real challenging thing that a lot of people go through alone. And so I feel blessed that I found a career and a lifestyle that I really love and feel passionate about. And I feel really blessed that I do have friends and I now have family that stand beside me through the highs and the lows of it. And I think that that's important. And I would wish that for everybody.
Yeah, definitely. And like going back to that loneliness, like I'm quite lucky because both my mom and my sister have got lupus. So they understand some of the things that I'm going through. So it's nice having other people that kind of get it, I suppose. And then for other people, like somebody showed me an article once about spoons and how spoons are like energy, and you can try and explain to people like the beginning of the day I've got say like 10 spoons, and getting out of bed is 1 spoon, and like getting a shower is another spoon, and then once I've ran out of them spoons, I need to like clock out. That's me done, and I probably need like a day of recovery to if I like borrow spoons from other days and things like it all sort of adds up and just makes things really, really difficult. And even then, so many people don't understand because they're fortunate enough to not have to understand, I guess.
Yeah.
But lucky for you, obviously it must feel worth it because you're doing something that is for you, and you're doing something that you love and have always wanted to do. So I guess it makes all that exhaustion and effort kind of worthwhile when you're missing out on the nice things with your friends and things like that. At least you've got something there that is just like, well, yeah, that's nice, but if I do that, I won't be able to do this, and this is my passion.
Yeah, getting back to feeling lucky and blessed, I think I feel really lucky and blessed that I have found my passion. Um, I don't know if a lot of people have. So,
No.
yeah, I think that for me to take the majority of my energy and to use that towards something that I really love and I really enjoy, and I've been able to find a way to make money off of it too. I think that I'm really extremely lucky, whether or not I have autoimmune.
Yeah.
I think that that's just a blessing for anybody to be able to do the thing that they love and earn a living off of it. And there's a saying that says, if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life. And that's complete baloney. I work really hard every day of my life, and it is work. But to know that tiredness at the end of the day comes from doing something I love. It doesn't, I'm going to kind of jump around here. In the winter,
Yeah.
when I'm at the ski resort, I have to spend a lot of time on the computer. And so I spend a lot of time out on the hill, and I spend a lot of time at a desk. And the desk is definitely more fatiguing. The sitting and the staring and the lights and the brain fatigue and trying to solve problems that aren't necessarily in front of me. They're not tangible problems. That is where my fatigue really comes from. And so to end my day in the summer knowing that my body is physically tired, as opposed to ending my day in the winter when my brain is tired, I think I'll take the physical fatigue over any of it.
Yeah. Well, I guess you can always rest your body, can't you? It's a lot more difficult to switch your brain off and rest that. It's tricky.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
But yeah, so do you still work in the ski resort in the winter now?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is still right now. It's a seasonal position. My season will run June through September. There's a potential to extend for it in October. Again, it's in the mountains. We're really weather based. And so if the trails are accessible, we'll continue longer into the year. There's potential to do things in the winter too. There's sleigh rides and things like that. But right now where I'm at, just beginning,
Yeah.
that doesn't make sense for me to pursue it. And so I'll continue with the ski resort, and we'll see how the horses do. And if I want to invest in winter equipment, or if I want to find a separate location and transport them in the wintertime to a sunnier location. There's a lot of variables there that I just don't necessarily need to open up. I have enough going into the summer season. And so that's my focus and my priority.
But is that the goal then, to be with the horses the full year round if you can at some point?
Yeah, I would love to. Absolutely. I think I don't necessarily know if it would be my herd of horses. There's so many different possibilities. And, some of them, again, like I said, could be relocating my herd to a sunnier location in the winter. I think that there's a potential for international horse travel and being able to link up with other outfitters in other countries and, provide experiences for people to do trail rides in other countries. I think there's just so many different possibilities out there. And I have like a journal where I keep all of my ideas and notes. And so that way I can reference back to them when I have more time. But yeah, again, like right now I'm it's dumping snow. We're expecting 15 inches of snow by the end of the day today. And so just getting hay to my horses today is the priority. And then tomorrow, depending
Yeah.
on the weather, we'll be able to focus more. And if it's sunny and easy and things are melting and I can get to the corrals really quickly, then that'll free up some time to think about other things. But the goal right now is just to get through the summer and the fall and have it be successful.
Amazing. So is this your first season on your own then?
This is my first season on my own. Yeah, we closed the
Wow.
deal at the first of the year. And so it's really interesting because we operate on public lands. It's a permit. And so the permit doesn't have, it has a value to it, but there's no cost. And so you can't purchase it. It needs to be transferred. And so there was a lot of demonstrating that I'm capable and qualified and committed and all of those things that needed to go into it so that we could transfer the permit to me. And then, of course, purchasing the horses and the land and the tack and the trailers. That was a big part of it. And then you have all of the online media that has value. And so there's definitely, it's been a lot of behind the scene things and it's been really exciting, but it's also a lot of waiting. The thing with horses that I really enjoy is that it's a direct feedback loop. I do something and they respond. And when we're out on the trail, we're experiencing in real life and in real time what's going on around us and all those observations and reactions. And, the other day I had to wait 5 days for a piece of paper to come in the mail. And I was just like, okay, I cannot make any forward progress until I get this paper. And so now I'm just waiting. And that's definitely an area where I am realizing I have some discomfort. And so having to learn to sit with that and, not stress about it, but just try to find other things that I can do in the background. And so it'll be really exciting to kind of take all of this work that has been intangible and actually have the horses in hand and be able to take people out on the ride and see how it all fits together. I'm looking forward to that for sure.
It sounds so exciting, but also really terrifying at the same time. As in like the situation you're in, like with the having to wait 5 days for a piece of paper and you can't kind of do anything until that's come. So how does everything sort of meet up with your expectations? Because obviously working for other outfits, you would have had some kind of idea of what you were getting yourself into. But is it kind of matching up to reality? Are you finding like the bureaucracy side of it and the fact that you're running the business yourself difficult or what?
I am definitely learning a lot about myself that I guess I was taking for granted. I wasn't necessarily, there's a lot of self-awareness that I'm developing. And I always thought I was pretty good because again, that direct feedback loop with horses and guests, you need to be situationally aware. You need to read energies. You need to pay attention to very small shifts in things so that you can be attuned to all of that and keep people safe and horses safe. But wasn't necessarily paying attention to myself. I was paying more attention to the animals and to the guests. And now that there's a lot of, like you said, bureaucracy going on, I have to kind of pay very close attention to my personality traits to make sure that I'm not ruffling feathers. People, I think, are more fragile than animals sometimes. Animals may be more sensitive and direct, but I think people are more fragile. And so I'm having to pay very close attention to my words and my tone and my body language in ways that I have always paid attention to, but now there's an ego involved that's not mine. And so treading that is definitely a learning curve for me. And it's good. It's all great. And it makes me a better horse person. And I definitely don't want to come across as offensive or aggressive or any of those things to other people. I want to be able to work with them and alongside them. And but yeah, that's I think where the biggest growth and learning opportunity is. And when you're an employee, you're just doing. Someone says do this, and you say okay, yes sir, and you get it done. And now I'm the one that's making decisions, which is it's always been a part of taking people out on the trail, but now it definitely involves making sure I'm not offending other people or upsetting other people or disagreeing with other people. And so, that's been interesting.
It's funny, isn't it? Because obviously, like relationships with animals are very, very unconditional. And with people, it's like it's very difficult to read people sometimes. So you might be doing your best to not offend them and things like that, but it's not guaranteed that things are going to go swimmingly anyway. So do you find yourself kind of like softening yourself a little bit and kind of playing a role and not really being yourself as a result, or are you kind of just more aware of how you're being and how it might come across?
I think I'm trying to relax during the periods when I'm waiting.
Yeah.
Um, I'm a doer, I'm a goer. I like to be actively involved. And there's a lot of times when I'm not actively involved and I'm patiently waiting. And so learning to be patient during the waiting is a big deal for me. And so I'm definitely, learning to just realize that there's nothing I can do until it happens. And so why am I stressing about it? Why am I fretting about it? Why am I worried about it? There's no reason to be. I saw a video of a dad the other day working with his son who uses a walker, and they were practicing going upstairs. And it was a very small child. And so developing a lot of strength and coordination with it. And the kid was getting really frustrated. And I think the dad said something like, we don't create monsters that don't exist. And that really resonated with me because of all of this new gray area that I'm sitting in while I'm waiting. And so I sometimes, that's kind of become a mantra of mine too, is like, oh, you know what, there's no reason to be stressed about this because it hasn't even happened yet. Let's wait until they make the decision. Let's wait until the meeting has occurred. Let's wait until we get the document. And then we can come up with the next course of action instead of trying to think of all the scenarios and play it out in my head. Like, that's just silly.
Yeah.
There's other things I can do with my time.
Yeah, that's one of my mantras as well, because I'm a massive overthinker. So whenever I'm getting into something, I'm always constantly thinking of worst case scenarios, and there's always multiple ones. And then I kind of like start planning, and I have to remind myself, like, why are you wasting energy planning for something that hasn't happened yet? Wait till
Yeah.
like, obviously, like, be aware of the fact that that can happen and have like a vague strategy for what you're going to do if it does, but why are you going in depth and trying to fix
Yeah.
it before it's broken?
Right. I'll practice these conversations in my head and I'm like, why am I talking
Yeah.
to myself? This is the dumbest thing.
Yeah, no, I completely relate to that, because I'm one of the worst. Like, my husband's constantly telling me, like, well, why are you stressing so much about something that might not even happen, because you haven't even had that conversation with so and so, you haven't even done that thing. And it's just, that's where my mind goes. But yeah. So what else are you kind of struggling with? Are you like not necessarily struggling, because we've already kind of covered a lot of that already, but is there anything you feel like you're still learning about yourself? Anything that you, I don't want to say fixed, because I don't like this self-development culture of like everything needs to be perfect and healed, and because nothing's ever perfect or healed. But are there parts that you can kind of see need worked on more? Anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I hope that I'm always constantly learning new things about myself and about horses and about this industry and about this business. I think that that's where we remain agile and flexible. And I hope that there's always opportunities for discovery, because that's, I think, where growth comes from. And I don't ever want to become stagnant or stuck or stubborn. And I think that I have the capability of becoming all of those things. And so to be presented with new ideas and new opportunities and new challenges and having to work through them and be aware of them, and respond to them, I hope that those are always occurring for me. And I hope that I'm always giving myself the opportunity to recognize new opportunities, and have ideas that I'm willing to explore. And so Yeah, I think that I would like for that to be a part of my future. I'm excited to, I think that especially my first year of operating this business, I think I'm going to learn a lot of things that I thought I knew and I have no idea about. And so I'm excited to see what those things are. And I've been talking to the fellow that I purchased the business from, and you know, he's been helping me set some goals, and I'm trying to keep reasonable expectations. But I think that this year will be a big learning opportunity and a discovery season. And I know that the basics, getting the horses cared for and taking the guests out on the trail and feeding them and bedding them and shoeing them and all of those things, I know. But being able to carry the business and have it be financially savvy are things that I'll learn. So I'm excited for that. Um, I'm excited to interact and meet with all of the new people. I've been out in Wyoming and for the past decade, and in Idaho for a number of years before that. And so to develop a new community out here through an industry that I'm familiar with, I'm really looking forward to that. Um, yeah, but I'm sure that there will be plenty of room for error where I'll say, "Oh gosh, I really did that thing wrong," and hopefully it will have low consequences.
Yeah.
But who knows, really?
That's the thing, though, isn't it? Because I feel like failure is not necessarily a bad thing as long as it doesn't have huge consequences, because it
Right.
gives you information to work from. So, like you say, it leads to growth. Um, but from speaking to you today, it seems like you've got the perfect mindset for what you're doing, because you're kind of just taking each day as it comes and dealing with whatever is thrown at you. And you're clearly a very mentally tough woman, because to do the job that you're doing anyway, you would need to be sort of like strong and like emotionally strong, physically strong as well. But to do that with autoimmune symptoms as well is crazy. Like I couldn't imagine. I couldn't imagine. Like sometimes I can't even get out of bed. I can't imagine like being able to get up and corral horses and mend fences and do everything that you're doing. It's amazing.
There's days where that's all it is. It's getting out of bed, it's throwing hay, it's making sure they have water, it's getting back into bed. And
Yeah.
um, I wish everybody grace, that they can give grace to themselves. That was a hard part. I said earlier that saying no to my friends was one of
Yeah.
the most challenging things. Learning to give myself grace was another big component. Um, and so, yeah, just I think being grateful for when I feel strong and healthy, and trying to take it easy on the days that I don't. And thankfully, with horses and livestock, they have needs that can't be ignored. And so, if nothing else, that gets me out of bed. And sometimes that's all it is that I do, but at least I've
Mm.
accomplished something and they're being cared for. And again, having that support network of friends that I can lean on, I think is really important. And I would
Yeah.
wish everybody finds that. But yeah, there's definitely challenges and there's successes and there's highs and lows. And knowing that I can get through the challenging days is also a really good feeling. It's not a good feeling in the moment. It's,
Yeah.
you understand how terrible it can be, and difficult it can be to not have your body perform the way that you want it to and expect it to. But to know that those days will pass, and to just be able to give yourself grace during that period. But yeah, I think
Yeah.
part of the beauty of what I do is that there is a demand of care that is daily and frequent. And so that at least gets me out of bed every day.
Yeah. Because you can't not, can you? Because those horses are depending on you. Like
Yeah, they
whether
rely
you
on
can
me
get
big
out of bed or
time.
not, they still need fed, and like you said, they still need watered and like cleaned out and stuff like
Yeah,
that. So
yeah,
it speaks to your character that even in the difficult times you can put your own needs aside and be there for the horses, because you know it's something you're so passionate about and you love, and your whole life has kind of been building up to you doing this.
yeah.
So building on that then, if somebody was in the same situation as you, so they're kind of like putting their own needs on hold to please everybody else, and kind of losing themselves in the process, what would you say to them? Like, what would you wish somebody had said to you when you were struggling with it in the beginning?
A lot of things. I wish that someone had told me they believed in me. I wish that someone had told me that if I failed, it would be okay and that I would have other opportunities and that it wouldn't be the end of the world. I wish that I had believed in myself enough to give it a go. I think that I didn't necessarily lack confidence when I was younger, but I didn't want to disappoint other people when I was younger. And so I wish that more people would understand the value of themselves and their happiness and their capabilities. I think we underestimate our capabilities a lot. But yeah, I would just wish that someone had enough trust in themselves to give it a shot, knowing that if they fail, there's always going to be something else that they can do to help carry them through. It's not the end of the world, unless you're doing something really extreme. I think that, we try so hard, our society puts so much pressure and effort on certain things, and to have the confidence and self-awareness to really evaluate the level of importance of those things. Is it self-important? If it is, sorry, I got caught up on my own tongue there. Is it self-imposed or is it imposed on us by others? And being able to differentiate between that so that you can really chase your heart and follow your dreams. And if it's not the right thing, then you can always pivot. I think that's a big thing. I've definitely tried a lot of things. I traveled to a lot of places. I did a lot of compromising, and all of those things were great. They got me closer to understanding to where I really needed to be, but they were also time consuming. And I think if I had just jumped right in when I first felt this urge and this pull and this desire and had the ability to chase it, I think that I would be much farther ahead than I am right now. But right now is where I'm at. And so that's perfectly fine too.
Yeah. I was going to say, that's another thing as well, is like, it's easy to compare your journey to somebody else's journey or the journey that could have been. And I think the more you tend to do that, the more difficult it is to actually take action towards what you want, because you tend to make it much more difficult and scary than it should be. So the fact that you're kind of like, well, yes, I could be further along, but this is where I am now, so this is where my focus is perfect.
Yeah, it'd be really silly to walk around upset about all the time I felt that I might have wasted earlier. Like, what am I going to do about it now?
Yeah, exactly. Well, you just learn from it, and that's all you can do. So if listeners want to get in touch with you, connect with you, find out more about what you do, look at nice pictures of horses, how would they go about getting in touch with you? Where would they find you?
So thanks for asking. The name of the business is Kirkwood Sierra Outfitters. And so we've got social media channels. We've got a website. We're on TikTok, Instagram. What else? Facebook, and a website. And it's all Kirkwood Sierra Outfitters.
Perfect. So I will put those links in the description. So if you're listening and want to take a look, then the links will be there just ready for you to click on. Thank you so much for coming on and chatting with me. I've loved chatting with you, and your story is very inspiring, to say the least.
Yeah, thank you. It's taken a lot to feel like I am at this position where I can share my story and have it be a good one. It's easy to get bogged down in the details of not having good health. And so I hope that people who might be in a similar position or have a dream that they might be hesitant on chasing definitely feel like they're not alone, and they have the capabilities and possibilities and opportunities, and that they find those things and take a chance on themselves and prioritize themselves and find the joy and beauty and doing all of those things.
Yes, definitely. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on. And thank you to everybody that's listening at home or in the cars, wherever. Join us next week for another episode.
Thank you so much for tuning in. I know these conversations aren't always easy to sit with, so we really appreciate you sticking through it. If you want to keep the conversation going, you can join our Discord community at www.haleyRyan.co.uk/Discord, and we'll see you next week.